G'day, I'm Debbie O'Shea, and this is the Crescendo Music Education Podcast, episode number 125. This podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Turrbal people. I acknowledge them as the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. They were the first music makers on this land. Hello, Debbie O'Shea here, the host of the Crescendo Music Education Podcast. This is the first in a series where we're focusing a little on instrumental music education. So this episode is with David Law. I was very much looking forward to having a chat with him, and it proved to be even better than I thought it would be. What an amazing person he is. This is the first part in my chat with David Law. Please enjoy. I know you will. He's just fabulous. Hello and welcome to the Crescendo Music Education Podcast. Today I am joined by David Law. Hello, David.
Hi, Debbie. It's so lovely to be involved, and thank you so much for asking me. I'm really flattered.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. I can't wait to get into this. In fact, we had trouble pressing the record button because we were chatting for too much. And
I know. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I like to talk.
We've got to go. I said, we've got to record this, David. It's gold. Okay. I'm going to start by reading your bio, and I had ChatGPT reduce it for me because it's so wonderfully long. So this is the shortened version, so you can add anything I miss out. Okay.
Sure.
All right. David Law has conducted the Wind Ensemble since 2009, starting his QIO journey as a member in 1997. He studied euphonium at Queensland University of Technology and has played piano since age 8. As the founding president and musical director of the Queensland Wind Orchestra, he also conducts Brisbane's Westside Orchestra and has guest conducted for various ensembles, including the Brisbane Philharmonic Orchestra. David is an experienced clinician and conductor, working with Queensland Music Festival and Griffith University's State Honours Ensemble program. He regularly leads school honour bands and presents at conferences on successful school band programs. Additionally, he has adjudicated state and national competitions. In musical theatre, he has served as music director and conductor, trained at the Godspeed Musical Theatre Institute, and conducted workshops for Opera Queensland. Currently, he is the head of performance music at Redeemer Lutheran College, directing award-winning ensembles.
Well, no wonder I'm so tired. It's a lot, isn't it?
That is a lot. And I'm sure there's stuff missed out.
I just think, oh my goodness, what have I done? But I laugh about it. But one of the things that I'm so grateful for, Debbie, is that I get to conduct across all of those different levels, from my beginner band here at school all the way through those honour programs and the Queensland Youth Orchestra and the Queensland Wind Orchestra, which is, an extraordinary community ensemble. And then I also get to do band and strings and choir as well. Like I feel so lucky to be, I think the term that we're using now is a portfolio conductor, where we, conduct across a number of different disciplines. And what a privilege to be able to make music in so many different ways. And that's what I was hearing when you were talking about my bio. I actually feel really privileged. So, and a little bit embarrassed. So,
well, but I think that's one of your characteristics that I think draws me to you, is that you, I don't want to use the word humble, but I sort of mean humble. I mean, approachable, open, not superior, even though you have amazing skills and you work at all of these different things. And I mean, just recently you were the adjudicator at my school's finals of the state fanfare. We were one of the top 5 primary bands.
Yeah.
And you were the adjudicator. You do all of these amazing things, and yet you are still generous and open. And,
Well, that's a really kind thing to say. And Debbie, everyone feels that way about you too. So let's just turn those tables around for a quick second and have a look at your amazing work that you're doing in this podcast and the fact that you are so open to sharing all of your ideas with everyone. But that's the whole thing, isn't it? We can't do our jobs by ourselves. We have to be nice to each other and share our ideas and have conversations, like personal and professional, because music, of course, is very personal. And so I like to be open and I like to share and I like to talk about our craft and I like to talk about student achievement. I want to hear wish there was more time. I want to hear every story about every child learning music across the whole state. I wouldn't be bored at all. I just think it's really important to share. And when we talk about the adjudicating, I really love giving back as well. So don't really see it as sort of like you said, I don't feel superior or that I'm judging others in that.
Judgmental. There's a
Judgmental, yes.
difference.
I don't feel like I'm being judgmental. I just really love sharing, and this is what I hear, and here are some things that you can improve on. And I hope that when my students do competitions as well, that I receive the same sort of open and honest and warm feedback. So I think it just takes a moment to be thoughtful, and it doesn't take any time to be warm and nice and friendly. And no matter how stressed and overwhelmed we're all feeling as teachers, and everyone feels like that all the time, there's still time for a laugh, and there's still time to be thoughtful. And I don't know. I think that, it's just music. We can just take a second to be grateful that we get to do that. And everything else sort of doesn't seem as important.
Yes. Wonderful. And that shows through everything you do.
Oh, stop it. I think, yeah, okay, let's move on. I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Okay, yes, let's move on. Because the other way that I've connected with you recently, well, relatively recently, was at pub choir. Can we just go to, I know
Sure.
this is going off script, but that's all right. Can we just talk pub choir? Because I don't go to as many pub choirs as I would like, but I probably go to one a year because, I'm an Astrid fan. I'm a Singing for Everyone fan. I make sure I'm in the front row because if I'm going to go, I'm there. It's just, it's quite pitiful. I can't quite analyse why, but I've got to be in the front row. And so that one at River Stage, you were conducting.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
how
you've
did
just
that
hit
all
on.
happen? Come on.
Well, Astrid used to be a singing. I'm sure she won't mind me talking with you about her, but she used to be a singing teacher here at Redeemer, where I work, and we've just became friends. And when she runs those big charity nights, so the one at River Stage was one of those charity events where I think she was fundraising for Women's Legal Services Australia.
I believe so.
And so that's a great chance to get involved in the community and give back. And not just that too, but just ask a whole heap of friends to come and play in those fabulous orchestras. And do you know, Debbie, that she does those arrangements herself?
Yes, I do know. It's
So not
mind-blowing.
only can she run a choir for thousands of people at a time, but she really can arrange and orchestrate. I mean, she is gifted. So why wouldn't I want to work with somebody like that, who not only is really talented and really skilled, but also, and most importantly, believes the same thing that we believe, that music is for everybody, that you don't have to have that awful word talent to be able to make music with other people. And that is the reason that I do pub choir, because I think music should be for everyone. And that's the philosophy that underlines really most of the work that I am interested in as a professional, but also here at school. And in any of the things that I do outside, if I'm going to give up my time to do extra things, I want to make sure it's inclusive and people feel good about themselves at the end of it. And they're the things that Astrid is really tapping into.
Yes.
And I, by the way, Debbie, would like to say that I did see you in the front row having the time of your life, and how lovely to see you singing your guts out and killing yourself laughing. See, it's just good for the soul, right?
Yes. And it's the laughing too. That's without the laughing, you know, I know here we are just going, oh, Astrid fans, but she's got the mix right.
She has got the mix right.
Those
Yep.
gifts just crack me up. And of course, so clever the way that she's using color and contour, melodic contour, to teach non-musicians how to sing their part. There is a part of me, I've got used to it now, but the first time I went, can I just have the music? Can I just have the music? I'll sing it better if I can read the music. And then I went, no, come on, go with the flow.
Yeah, but you know, isn't that great for our brains as musicians
Yes.
to be engaging in music notation in a brand new way that she has sort of invented, that
Yes.
is not inaccessible. She's made music making accessible. She's made music reading accessible. I mean, I just think that's an amazing thing, isn't it? And I think about that when I'm conducting my students now too. I have a group here at school called the Fellas, which is an unauditioned boys group for from years 7 to 12. We just rehearse once a week at lunchtime, and most of those boys cannot read music. They just love to sing. I do some arrangements of pop songs, rock songs, those kinds of things. And when I'm conducting them, I'm constantly thinking about what Astrid does with pub choir and the way that it's about contour. It's not always about the actual names of the notes, and how I can sort of merge those two things together. Because of course I want my students engaging in music notation, but at the same time I want them to feel successful. So I sort of want to sort of collide those two things together. And actually, Debbie, we do spend a lot of time talking about contour. And look, you can see those notes going up and down. You know, your note stays the same when you turn the page. You know, your note is the same. So the note will be, you know, exactly where you were. So the things that she's been doing with that massive community all around the world, sort of I can take some of those ideas and put them into my own work. And I think actually just talking to you about it now, we try and do that all the time as professionals, don't we? You go and see somebody do something amazing and you think, oh, how can I take that macro idea and make it like a little micro idea that I can use? And it's pretty great, isn't it? Aren't we lucky to have access to all of these things?
It is. I think it's why I'm a PD junkie. Like,
you are a PD. Yeah,
I'm
I
at
think
everything.
I'm a PD.
I'm at everything.
Yeah.
I'm just because I'm like,
well, I just want to hear.
choose that.
I have a friend of mine, and we talk about this all the time. There's nothing better than watching or listening to someone talk about something they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no matter what it is, no matter what the content, you know, if you listen to someone really passionate, of course you want to do what they're doing. You know, those little nuggets, they just turn up, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to see everything because you never know when a great idea is going to come past.
Yes, I
Yeah.
get FOMO really badly if there's something that I can't go to. But, you know, just before we leave that notation idea, it's actually reflected really strongly in Kodai pedagogy. Like I'm quite openly use Kodai. I'm a Kodai inspired teacher. And that's every time you teach a new element, and particularly if you were talking pitch element, I mean, that whole contour thing in the lead up is vital. You know, whether you're using the kinesthetic body signs and hand signs, but you're also pictorial representation, you know, with the ball is going bounce high, bounce low, across, you know, that's part of the preparation for that. But I think where it could impact in basic pedagogy is you could also then include that concept in more of the practice rather than once you've gone to notation. Still use notation, but occasionally pop in something that's more I don't want to say graphic notation because I don't want to just put dots on the page and hit a drum. I don't want to go quite to that. But if we're talking notation, use elements of the preparation in your practice.
Well, I think we're talking about accessibility too, making sure that everybody has an understanding of pitch. And, you know, as someone who takes a beginner band, I mean, I reap the benefits of the Kodai training that happens from prep to 4. We start our beginner band in year 5. And so by the time students get to band, they already have an understanding of how their voice is working. They have an understanding of high notes and low notes. They have a pretty good understanding of how to read treble clef, which is fantastic for students who want to move into bass clef. You know, if you can read A clef, you can read any clef. And so I think that all of those building blocks and using all of that knowledge really helps all the way through someone's music journey.
Oh, I believe that. If you're mentioning your beginner band, if you look back at the journey, your whole journey as a music educator, and you obviously really do like working with those beginner kids, what would you put, though, as a highlight or highlights of your journey so far? And I want you to mention gratitude too, because I like asking all my guests about gratitude, because I think that in essence, gratitude keeps you focused and passionate about your job. If you're not grateful, then you're probably going to start turning into the mean, cranky teacher, you know?
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, or leave the profession altogether. Yeah.
yeah. So
Um,
highlights and gratitude.
Gosh, I mean, I have so many highlights. I think, Debbie, I think actually the highlights and I think this towers above everything is the relationships that I've been able to build and maintain and cultivate. So the first thing I think of is the amazing relationships that I have with my peers, with my colleagues, and people I've been working with for, nearly 20 years. And sharing knowledge with people who I care about, and learning about what makes them tick, and oh my goodness, and then traveling around the country and sharing all of that knowledge with other people and gaining knowledge from them. And I think all of those peer and collegial relationships, that's probably the thing I'm most grateful for, especially when work is not always easy. Any job comes with its challenges. I see you laughing.
Oh, like what an
But
understatement.
it's not.
Work is
Everybody
not
yeah,
always easy. Oh my,
everybody knows. Everybody knows that work can be hard, right? So
yep.
if you've got amazing professional relationships with people, like just people, actual human beings who have feelings and thoughts, if those relationships can really help you get through the tricky times too. So, it doesn't. I think that's probably the thing I'm most grateful for. But if I look at highlights and things, I mean, I think the expected answer is that I'll say, oh, look, I got to conduct the Australian Honours Ensemble program a few times, or that, I made the Queensland Wind Orchestra with some friends of mine. And now it's one of the top ensembles in the country, I suppose. But actually, the real highlights are this immense privilege that I have for being able to see a student through from the beginning to basically the end. That I start students in year 5 in the band program, or sometimes I'm part of their journey from year 2 when they start strings. And I see them all the way through their school, at a P to 12 school. I get to see them all the way through school. I get to see them grow as musicians. They might play in QIO with me as the conductor. I might intersect from time to time with them when they're at tertiary studies. And then they go off and I get to watch them play in the Queensland Symphony Orchestra, or I get to see them weekly in my Queensland Wind Orchestra rehearsals. And I think, man, how grateful am I to be a part of someone's musical growth and being apart from that first seed of music making all the way through to it being like, a glorious tree. What a terrible metaphor, but it is a privilege. It is such a privilege to see students grow all the way through their music journey. And I think that in combination with the fabulous relationships that you make along the way. So the student relationships and relationships with their parents and family members, like even their grandparents who come to concerts, and then the relationships you have in the workplace with your colleagues and peers. I think that's probably a big combination of gratitude and highlights, because I think maybe they go together.
Yeah, I love that answer. And I feel that answer here. And I love tree metaphor analogies. It's one of my favorites. In fact, Together Sing. I hope you know about Together
Of
Sing.
course.
If not, we will have good. When Deb and I made that up in a motel room in Mackay in September 2018, I just went into Canva and started creating, and I literally made up that logo, the tree. That's me.
Yeah.
Because the
Oh, that's
tree,
amazing.
like, to me, it's something that I think really reflects what we do. like right
Well, I think
from
so.
the feeding of
Yeah.
the roots and the trunk and the branches. And eventually you
Mm.
get this gorgeous foliage and flowers and stuff. But like if you don't have nice, solid, the roots leading in and you don't have a good trunk, like you don't form that basis, you're not going to get the
Yeah. Well,
beautiful flowers and the,
one of the things that I think about when we talk about the tree metaphor is that plants like a tree always look good. You don't have an ugly trunk first and then the branches and the leaves come out. You have a small tree, and that tree always has branches and leaves and it's always growing. And I think that there's that sort of misconception that, oh, my child plays violin and it's terrible, and I hear them practicing and scratching away in the background, or they've brought home their glockenspiel for the first time from band and they just bash it or whatever. But actually that's not true. Like, we see as teachers that it is a really amazing little tree right from the beginning, and that it does have a branch and it does have leaves, and but it's just small. It's only just in its infancy. And I think that when we think about the metaphor growing into a massive big tree, it still has been a tree all along. Does this make sense, Debbie?
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I am adding that to my heartfelt tree analogies. I love it. But it's
I was not
true.
expecting to dig into this today.
Yeah, who would have thought we'd be talking about trees? But
But you know what I'm
it's
saying is that
true.
I think that there's
Yeah.
something. I think what I'm really saying is there's
Yeah.
something to celebrate
Mhm.
about a musician right from the beginning. Like, right from the moment when they open their instrument case on the very first day, there's something to celebrate. The very first sound we make on our mouthpiece, the very first time we use our bow, even the first time we sing, the first time we're able to do a concert with our friends in year 2 or in year 1 or whatever, there's always something to celebrate. So that tree is always growing. That tree is all, and it continues to grow too, right? I mean, if you're at the other end of that tree and you've got this beautiful, big, amazing thing, the top musicians around the world are still learning, are still sharing, are still attending PD, are still growing in new ways too, So
Mhm.
I think maybe I made fun of the metaphor, but maybe it's actually a really good one.
I actually think it's fabulous. And I'm going to even add to that because I have to. I believe that everybody is a musician. I don't
Mm.
believe you have to be professional and be paid or get to a certain level. Right from when those kids walk into my classroom in prep and make a circle and hold hands and sing Ring a Rosie, we are being musicians.
Mhm.
They are
Mhm.
musicians. They
Yeah,
are growing,
exactly.
learning, and
Well, this feeds into my philosophy is that music is for everyone. Everybody. Music is for everyone. It's inside everyone. It just needs to be nurtured.
Mhm.
But everybody can do it, and everyone can participate in their own way. Doesn't mean that everyone has to become a professional musician, but music speaks to everybody, and sharing music with others is one of life's great joys, I think, and everybody should have access to that. And I know that you feel the same way, Debbie.
Oh, too right. That's why we're fighting so hard to make sure that music is in every school,
Mm,
exists in the heart of every school. You can't get rid of it. It's so important. We are
mm,
all musicians and we all need to express ourselves that way, even if all you ever get to do is be part of classroom music. And especially if you've got qualified music educators that know what they're doing, there's so much learning that can go on
mm,
in there. And if it feeds into an instrumental program, all the better, but often there's not an equitable access to
mm.
instrumental. So let's at least make sure they get the good classroom stuff. So,
Yeah, well, I mean, and
yeah,
you and I both know too that it's not just music. Classroom music doesn't just feed into an instrumental program. I mean, classroom music also feeds into all of the other areas of their learning.
no,
All of the research shows that music does great things for your brain. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think that if we have really well-trained primary classroom teachers everywhere, then we'll see results go up in not just instrumental music, but in math, in science, in written language. We know that. So I think, but it comes down to training too, doesn't it? It's about making sure that students are learning music well and not
yes,
just listening to pop music. I mean,
yes.
which is great, let's be honest, but it's not a healthy diet.
No, that's right. You need a balanced diet. That is really true. So can we talk a little bit? I do want to get onto your beginner band program. That's interesting. But before we leave this classroom and instrumental music, um, what are your thoughts around how these two things work together? Because in my experience, there's often, not always, a bit of a divide. There's the classroom teachers, there's the instrumental teachers. And if there's ever a combined PD, there's such as things like the Maryborough Conference, which is the not Maryborough Conference now. We've got the strand for classroom teachers, there's the strand for instrumental teachers. You're allowed to get together when there's a keynote, but that's about it. It's as if we're different creatures. And I know that the nature of our job is slightly different, but there's a lot of overlap. So what are your philosophies on getting these two things working together?
Well, they have to work together. I mean, the best programs, when we look around Queensland, and even the country, the best programs are the ones where the classroom program and the instrumental program are working collaboratively. And the best results come from everybody being involved in a student's musical journey, not separate paths. So I think that in some ways, that conference doesn't quite have that right. I mean, I think there's a lot that classroom teachers can learn from the instrumental part of teaching. And I think likewise, and this is often not spoken about, is that instrumental teachers can learn a lot about what's happening in the classroom. Here at Redeemer, we talk all the time about this triangle. So there's a triangle of student musical success, and one point of the triangle is classroom music. Another point of the triangle is ensembles, and the other part of the triangle is music lessons, music tuition. And we think that any student who is successfully operating in at least two of those points at the triangle is having a positive musical experience. So it might be a student who has lessons maybe has piano lessons and does classroom music, happy, satisfied, good musician. Someone who might do year six, be in the classroom in year six, and might sing in our choristers, so like the choir for grade 5 and 6 students, happy, no problems. But it's like when only one of those things is working, then that's sort of like it's a shaky sort of musical situation. So if a student is only in an ensemble but doesn't do classroom music and doesn't do lessons, I mean, they're not actually going to have a great experience because they'll probably get left behind. If we've got a student who's doing classroom music but maybe doesn't do an ensemble and doesn't have lessons, likewise, they're not going to be having the richest experience. So we talk constantly in our department about those 3 points of the triangle overlapping. And at the top end too, Debbie, like in music extension, the classroom teacher does want to be speaking with the person delivering music tuition, so that those things are lined up for those students who are doing really remarkable things as part of the music extension program in year 12. So that triangle is so important, and the stronger the triangle is, so the stronger the relationships are between the different points. Who are the beneficiaries of that but the students, of course. So we think that it's so important to integrate. On a personal note too, I want to know what's happening in the classroom so that I can be mindful of particularly the language that is being used in the classroom when I'm delivering my rehearsals, so that I can speak about music the same way that music is being spoken about in the classroom, so that students realize that music, it's everywhere, and that everyone speaks the same language. And sure, I'm holding a baton and I'm conducting a band piece, but actually it's the same as singing a song in class, or it's the same as that grade 4 AMEB piece they're working on in their music lessons. So I think making sure you're aware of what's happening, that just enhances the student experience. So you'd be crazy not to want to know what's happening in the classroom. Not to mention that I can do some of the same warm-ups. I can use some of the songs from classroom. In the band room, we can try and figure out some of the songs that we've been doing in class in band or strings, and sharing across the disciplines is the best. And it's fun. Like, let's talk about it being fun for a second. It's really fun to collaborate. And it's really fun to see students, the little light bulbs going off when they're like, oh, hang on a second. I know this already because we did it in class. Or hang on a second, I already know how to talk about I already know how to talk about Stravinsky because we have been playing we've been playing music that is similar to that in band, and these are the terms that have been used. And so when I go to write about music at a high level in the senior syllabus, that I've already thought about how to talk about music. So I think, we want to collaborate, we want to use the same language, and of course students get to see that it's all one big thing too. And I could talk about this forever. And the other thing is, of course, that students get to see us as professionals collaborating too. And that's really important, that young people get to see that those professional relationships are important and valued. So when they go on to study at university or to be just professionals in the workplace, they can have sort of had role models, or they've had sort of examples of that they remember from school, where they're like, oh, I saw, the classroom teachers and the band teachers talking about this, and, that was, and they remember those kinds of things.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's just essential on a really basic level. And we keep coming back to this beginner band thing for some reason, Debbie, but when we go to work out who's going to play what instruments for the first time in year 5, we talk with the year 4 classroom music teachers to see what students are like and who would be best to play an instrument that perhaps where you need a little bit more independence. Like if we're talking about something like tuba or bass clarinet or tenor sax, where you need to be a bit more independent because there's not a big section of those instruments in the beginner band. Which students would benefit from being in a bigger section. Which students like loud sounds, which students like soft sound, which students need to sit at the front, which students, so having relationships with the classroom teachers who really see primary students every week and know about their learning styles and know what makes them tick, that helps us build an instrumental program that is in the best interests of the students as well. So I think those kinds of things, I don't think we can underestimate how important the relationship is between classroom music and instrumental music. And I would like to see way more collaborating. I was very lucky because when I first started playing a band instrument back in the early 90s, my band teacher was also my classroom music teacher. And that made, I think maybe I'm just realizing this now, but maybe that stayed with me my whole life, that I could see those two things as being connected, which of course they are and should be.
Where was that? Was that in Queensland? No.
Oh, yeah, it was in Queensland. I was lucky, Debbie, because I had Glenn Court,
Okay.
who is an icon. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, very lucky to I've had great teachers. Oh my goodness, I'm so lucky. And I had Jenny Moon at high school as well. So, I mean, I have been on the receiving end of great music education since I started. But with classroom and instrumental, it's still music. It's still music making. And so I think when we all get on the same page, when we all get into the same car and we're all going in the same direction, I think that's when the results are at their very best.
Yeah, I love it. And we actually do work together, listen to each other, cooperate. And like you said, we're helping to form those connections for kids too. And we all know the more connections you've got, the better for your brain and the better to work. So it's better internally, but it's also better externally, working with others.
We're talking about the students, but it's also true for us as adults, isn't it?
Yes.
That like when we have people who share the same vision, and it makes the workplace a lot more enjoyable, and we can learn from each other. I mean, learning's so great.
It
Who
is.
doesn't want more knowledge? Who doesn't want more knowledge? Bring it on.
Oh, I know. I did one of those tests. I've got to find where it is because I'd like to do it again. That you go through and it comes up with your values. There's a huge list, and you answer these questions and it comes up with your values in order. And mine at the top is learning. And I thought, yeah, that's why I'm a PD tragic, I guess.
That sounds right for you. Yeah, you do love learning, but you love sharing too, Debbie, and that's what everyone loves about you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's my turn to be embarrassed now. But but it is true and it's essential. that we need to share. And it's a problem often with classroom music, instrumental too, depending on your situation. But because we're often so isolated, that's
Mm.
why I think professional associations and professional development is vital for us. Like, you sound like, from that point of view, you're in a lovely work situation where you get to talk to those people like
Mm.
fairly regularly. Whereas people that are, I'm at this school for one day and that's the day the music teacher's not there at the same time. So we just leave each other notes, on circuits and working by yourself. I think if you work, the message is, I think, if you're working by yourself, you've got to form your own networks.
Mm. Well, look what we're doing right now. We're chatting on Zoom. So if you are feeling really isolated, we actually are really easily connectable these days. Like if you're looking for some PD, there's nothing stopping you from setting up a computer in your band room or in your classroom, recording a session and sending it to someone you trust for some feedback, and building relationships that way. I think, asking for help and is a really great way to start conversations about sharing. And feedback's just so important, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So like, let's use technology and let's make, that's when technology is at its best, isn't it? Like creating community. So let's use it for good.
Yeah,
And
yes.
and everyone can do more of that. Here is a recording of the things that I did in class today with my year threes. What can we do in our string program? What can you do in your string program to consolidate the things that I've just taught? So if you have a moment, can you have a look at this section of the video that I've made? So when you come in on Thursday to take strings, is there any way you can consolidate what I've been doing in that particular moment? Just record it, share it, and grow together. Even if you don't cross paths every day, we can still use technology to build our relationships and acquire knowledge. So, and again, who benefits? The students benefit. So
That's right. You benefit and the students benefit.
yeah,
Win-win.
absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
we keep talking about this beginner band program. Um, can you tell us a little more about it, how it
Yeah, I
works?
can. So, I mean, it all comes down to this philosophy that music is for everyone. So we're in a really unique situation here where we many years ago wanted to offer in our private school that we work at the same kind of experience that a student gets in a state school by being part of the band program. So we said, look, we're going to make it available to everybody. We'll make a balanced ensemble, so we'll have enough instruments to facilitate that ensemble. And we had 100% of the students opting in. So for maybe 8 or 9 years, we had the entire cohort. We've now made it part of the curriculum in year 5. So band is curriculum. So there's your overlap. Like, we work together with the classroom teachers, and the instrumental teachers are the music program in year 5.
Okay, how do you do that? How does it physically, how do you do that?
Do you mean how do we fit everybody in one room, or do
Yeah.
you mean how do we deliver content?
Yes, both of those things. And how does it
Okay.
fit into the timetable? And
Okay. Well, the way that we got it across the line in the first place is by saying, if you give us everyone in grade 5 at the same time, they won't be coming out of their classes for lessons during the week, right? So you give us everyone at once, and we will not, and all of the students who play band won't be coming and going from class like all the strings and the piano kids do, which isn't, it's inevitable. That's what
yeah,
happens. So that's what they do. So we take everyone. So we have all. Thankfully, we're in a small school, so we have 3 year 5 classes. We take everybody all at once, and then we use the entire department to deliver that, to present a united front and deliver that
wow.
subject. So there's me, there's 1, 2, 3 classroom music teachers, and because it's a P to 12 school, we're using all of the teachers that we have available. If we didn't have the right teaching stuff, we'd bring in, another person to deliver, whatever. But actually, we have enough people here that all of the specialists on the instruments are also the classroom teachers. So one of our classroom teachers is a flautist. We have another classroom teacher who was a clarinet player. We have another person who can play sax. We have another person delivering percussion. I do brass and strings. So like it all works together. So we have all of these options where we, for the first couple of weeks, we just separate out into small groups just for 2 weeks. And we learn how to safely, I've underlined that and put it in bold, how to safely put our instruments together and how to safely like make a sound on our instruments. And then in like week 3, once we can play a note or 2 notes, we're all together and it's a band and we start making music all together right from the beginning. So everybody's in the room at once. All of their friends are in the same room as them, whether they're playing the same instruments or not, it doesn't matter. But everyone is making sounds at the same time and we're learning about music. So right from the beginning, we're talking about dynamics, we're talking about breathing, we're talking about phrasing, we're talking about color, we're talking about following, reading notes on the page. So we're starting with semibreves, of course. And we're talking about articulation and oh my goodness. So that's week 3 and 4 and we're all together. So then we have to sort of like unpack that a little bit and we go back to our other groups. So now everyone's played in band, everyone knows what it is. Of course, we're having a great time, but then we can split up into smaller groups and work on instrumental techniques too. So we use a homogeneous band book. So we use essential elements, but we also made a booklet. We also made a classroom booklet that goes alongside essential elements that has homework activities, that consolidates theoretic music theory skills. There's, putting notation, like recognizing the solfa and the letter name. So we do so much singing, Debbie, like so much singing, everyone's singing in B flat do. So that when I sing a note, when I sing do, everyone can play a note. I don't have to say, okay, I'm going to sing do now. You play B flat and you play G and you play F and you play E flat. Like we're not doing any of that stuff. So I just sing do, but then we're also talking about letter names in small groups so that students have an understanding that a music will look like this. We sing do and the letter name is whatever. So they understand that it's like 3 languages at once. There's the notation, the solfège, and the letter names. So we do that. And then we also do some composing. So we break down even into other groups where we actually write our own pieces using the notes that we know. So once we get to being able to play 5 notes, we break into what we call our composer groups. So all the bass clef students go together, all of the students reading B flat instruments go together, all the students reading C instruments go together, and we sort of like break up into small groups, and then we start writing our own melodies using the notes and the rhythms that we've learned in class. We sing them in solfa, we play them on our instruments. When we do assessment, some of the assessment is playing. So at the end of every semester, the students record a video of them playing some of the pieces that we've been doing in class. But during the semester, we also do a little bit of assessment that might be singing. So showing that you know the letter names and you know the hand signs and you know your solfa. And let me tell you, Debbie, it is so good. It is so good. We have collaborated and we have built something really amazing. And because it's fun and because it's good, well, actually, it goes the other way. Because it's good, it is fun. And so we have really great retention. And we're looking at 80% of students continuing into grade 6 where it's not compulsory anymore, because the program's really rich and they just want to keep playing their instruments. And that is how we've ended up in a situation where so many of our students play more than one instrument. So when they get to band, lots of our students here are already string players. So they have already had a chance to play violin, viola, cello, double bass. When they hit band and enjoy it, they continue playing their string instrument and their band instrument because they see that it's all just one thing. You're just a musician. You just happen to have this instrument on this day and you have this instrument on another day and you sing in the choir on another day. So we have this massive collection of senior school students who play a string instrument, play a band instrument, sing in the choir, are interested in jazz, might have lessons on one of their instruments or maybe 2, but we're just building musicians. We're not building students who are band kids. We're not building flute players. We're not building violists. We're building musicians. And that is something that I'm super duper proud of. And I think that one of the reasons why we've been able to do that is because of the integration between instrumental music and classroom music in that grade 5 space. How was that?
That was
Did I do okay?
That was amazing. I want one.
It's really great, Debbie. It's so terrific. And it's so wonderful seeing the instrumental students engaging in classroom music through the lens of band,
Yes.
or the other
Or
way
the other way
around.
round. Yep.
Or the other way around, depending on
Yes.
which path you're traveling on. So the classroom teachers love that they're engaging in classroom music through the lens of band, and we love that they're engaging in band through the lens of classroom music, because it makes everyone's experience richer. And if it was possible to do that from 5 to 12, I mean, we would, but we only have that opportunity once in year 5 to get that right. And I think we've got it right. And so it works really well for us. I think one of the things that other schools maybe don't do so well is that they do immersion in year 4 or 5 or whatever, but continue it on into 6 or continue it on longer than it needs to. And I think that some students become a little bit resentful if they're made to do something, and because families too, it's not for everybody. Some families just they're happy to do classroom music, but they don't want to be part of all of those extra things that come with being an instrumentalist. And so I think sometimes the tail gets too long, and when the longer you do something, obviously we've got some students who get way out in front, and we've got other students who need a little bit of extra support at the back. And I think that doing immersion programs in place of classroom music is not always a great idea, actually. So we do this little bubble of grade 5 band in year 5, but then students go back into the classroom program for year 6. And I think that that's really important. Yeah.
And I think from your description, one of the things that your immersion program has is great input by the classroom teacher as well, so that it's really
lots of input.
focusing on the oral and the general musicianship, which I think is the focus of a good classroom program. And I actually think it comes down to one word, really, is that it's musicianship, and it's developing musicians. It's not developing that whole thing of, and how are they going in flute? Oh, great.
We're not building instrumentalists. We're building
we're
musicians.
working on page 20 now. So we're up to exercise 7. Like that's the development of the musician. Exercise 7. No, it's not. No.
Yeah. Well,
and I
you
think
might be really interested to know too, Debbie, that compared to other beginner programs, we actually move quite slowly through the book. So because instead of just rushing through and learning all the songs, I'm actually a lot more interested in tone. I'm actually a lot more interested in stopping on that page and writing dynamics on the page, like writing in. And we have a silly little activity we did just last week, is that we rolled these dice. So we went through, it was the end of the term, so it's a nice last lesson for the term. We rolled these dice. One of the dice has tempos on it, so it has adagio, moderato, presto. The other dice has things like dynamics or staccato or whatever. So we chose songs from the book, and then we rolled the dice together, and then we played those songs that way.
that is such a classroom music thing to do. Go you.
Of course it is. But what the outcome is that students are moving past just the notes and the fingerings on their instruments, and are actually engaging in music in a meaningful way and in a long-term way. So those things will stay part of their music path, will stay, with them while they travel their music path. Whereas if you are just rushing through an instrumental book and learning the songs by recognizing the fingerings and things, I mean, you're not going to be able to remember any of that after the school holidays in December, and then you end up having to start all over again. So I think, taking your time and building a really strong musical foundation when you're doing an immersion program, I think, is the key to success, outside of the main key, which obviously is collaborating with the classroom program.
I could not agree more. That's
I'm so passionate about it, Debbie. I'm so passionate about getting it right from the start.
And your school must be very supportive too, because by the sound of it, that does take some resourcing. Like, that's some teacher time there, and teacher time is expensive.
Yeah.
However, I imagine your grade 5 teachers would be very grateful to have that time offline to work collaboratively. The classroom teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all works. It all fits into the puzzle because everyone believes it is good. So, we're at that point now where it's well established, and well recognised. So it's something that the school values, and it's certainly something that the parents and the community value. It's something students look forward to in year 4. So they'll see me in the building and they'll be like, "Oh, I know you're going to be teaching us next year," and it's lovely, isn't it? So yeah, and it does take some resourcing, but we're in a position here where we have enough teachers for that to be able to work. So instead of year 5 being delivered 3 times by one teacher, it's being delivered by 3 teachers once each. It just all happens at the same time.
Mm. It sounds fairly perfect to me.
Yeah, and it's good, and it's because it's good, it's fun. You know,
Yes.
I say to the students all the time, I mean, and this is, I suppose, something we can talk about later, but you know, young people want to be part of something. I think there's a bit of a misconception that young people want to be part of something fun, but actually young people want to be part of something good. And
Yes.
when it's good, it's fun. When it's good, they're proud of it. So when it's good, it turns into something that is very fun. And that is a really important thing to remember when it comes to retention, that students will dip into a fun activity, but it's not really a long-term thing. But if you make it really good and you're delivering something that you care about and you're delivering it in an intelligent way, then students will stick around.
Mm.
So I always say especially in the senior school, I'm always saying to the students, you know, good equals fun. So let's work on this, and then you'll see what I mean. And then inevitably they understand.
Yeah.
So
It is so true. Children, I know they are children. Yes, they're children. A lot of brain development to happen, but they're actually not silly. They
oh no, I
they
know.
know when they're learning, and they get great pleasure from actually learning and developing and achieving. Yes, of course, it's fun to just do some superficial fun thing. And in fact, Anita Collins, just at the ASBA State Conference recently, when I used the word, it's fun, but also, and she said, just be careful on the use of fun, because you don't want that superficial, yes, just entertainment, not education. You know,
Yeah.
kids want to learn. They know when they're learning, they know when they're achieving, and they want us to challenge them intellectually and to help them grow,
Mm.
not to be really superficial. So I
Yeah,
think
well,
we need to give them credit for that.
well, young people know why they're at school and they're there to learn. And you said entertainment, and then you said education, and I think there's that great word edutainment too.
Edutainment.
That if
Yep.
that if you can reach that from time to time, I mean, then you're really mastering your craft.
Yes.
But you know, my experience is that students really value something that is good quality, and not just music, but anything when they come to school, or even anything in their own private lives as well. Like if it's good, they stick around because they see the value in that. And I think that's really important. So I think sometimes we need to have a look at if I think sometimes we need to have a look at ourselves as well and think, you know, am I delivering something that is really good? And am I delivering that in an intelligent way that is appealing, like so that students realize that they're learning something, but then also consolidating that with that element of playfulness too and humor, so that it is delivered in a way that is accessible and not dry, but actually ultimately satisfying because it's quality.
Yes.
I don't
I
think I
agree
would
with
as
that.
articulate as I
However,
don't think that's as articulate as I wanted it to be.
no,
But
I thought it was very articulate, but can I just, you said sometimes at the beginning, I actually think that is what a good educator does all the
all the
time,
time. No, you're
all
right.
the time.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're aspiring to anyway.
Yes, that self-reflection, I think it becomes automatic once you've been in the game for a while and you want to grow and improve. It's automatic. You've just
Mm,
delivered a grade 6 lesson, and in the back of your head, you're going, I could have done this, this, and this better. And then you get the next grade 6 and you tweak it. So I think that to me is the hallmark of a good educator, is constant self-reflection.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree. I think I'm thinking about what I'm doing all the time.
Mm.
And I think everyone who cares about their work thinks about it, you know? And I want to do a better job all the time,
Mm.
constantly. Like even when I have a great rehearsal or deliver a great lesson, I'm still thinking, oh, look, I could do this little bit I could do that, change that just a tiny bit for next time. Lots of notes, like leaving lots of notes for myself for next time. I think so helpful, isn't it? I don't know. I just want to grow all the time. I also like talking about my rehearsals, and I like talking about my classes with others to see how that, if anyone else has ideas about how I could have done something differently or things that went well, so that I shouldn't talk about it being negative, but sometimes, things go really well and you want to redo that, you want to capture that magic and then deliver that a second time or a third time or whatever. So it's not just about things you can do better. It's also about acknowledging some of the things that you do okay, that you do well, and you want to sort of continue to do those things. So, yeah, I think it's that reflection thing's super important, isn't it, Debbie?
So important, David. But I also think, or maybe I'm just speaking about myself, sometimes we don't take enough time to celebrate the little things and to go, yeah, okay. Because as soon as you feel good, I did that and it generally worked well. Now on to the next thing. And what can I improve? And instead of just going, okay, stop, just take a moment to go, that was pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes lessons and rehearsals can be really tricky, and they don't start well. Sometimes the things that have happened during the day or things that have happened at home, students come to rehearsal or class in a certain mindset, and that if you're able to turn that around so that everybody has had a positive experience, then I think that is absolutely worth celebrating. Something I was going to say later in the podcast, Debbie, is that one of my goals is to make sure that everyone feels good about themselves when the rehearsal or the class is finished. So that no matter what happens at the very end of rehearsal, I want every single person to leave feeling good about themselves and being mindful of that. And maybe tying into what you've just said, maybe we need to take a moment to feel good about ourselves as well, which is hard to do sometimes.
It is hard to do. I find that hard to do. That's amazing. Oh, look, I want to keep talking to you, but I really think we should get to nuggets of fabulous. Or is there anything else you want to make sure you mention before we get on to nuggets of fabulous?
Oh no, I'm just enjoying our chat.
Oh,
On
it's
that
so
last thing
good.
I talked about, so I will just quickly talk
Yes.
about something that I've been thinking about recently, if that's okay.
Oh,
I
please.
just wanted to talk about a rehearsal, and I've sort of recently just had this thought that a good rehearsal is like a good book or a good play, or a good episode of television or a film, and that it has a really strong start, a really interesting middle, and then a good end, right? And I've been thinking a lot about how I can structure even just my quick little rehearsals, like my little 30-minute rehearsals or my 40-minute rehearsals. And also this applies to my much longer rehearsals, which are sometimes 2 hours. This is, what we're talking about with the Queensland Wind
With
Orchestra, not
grown-ups.
students.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
with adults. Yeah. Oh my goodness, what a nightmare. Can you imagine?
Imagine
Anyway, I mean, I couldn't be with myself for that long, let alone the students. Um, no, but so lately I've been thinking about when I'm structuring rehearsals, making sure I've got something really excellent and captivating and interesting to begin the rehearsal, that in the middle, when we're doing a lot of like the hard work, that there's really good pacing, and making sure that I'm being really mindful of pacing at the moment. That is something that I think as I get a little bit older, it's something I care more about. And then I always make sure we finish positively and that there's a good ending as well. And I think if I can structure every rehearsal or every lesson in that way, I think the student journey for that period of time is a really positive one, that they feel like it started great, they did some learning, and they have like acquired a whole heap of knowledge and skills in that middle bit in an interesting way. That's why the pacing is really important. And then the ending of it is rich, that like there's a little bit of impact right in the final moments, and making sure that everybody leaves rehearsal feeling good about themselves. And so I think I just wanted to share that today too, because it's not complicated. Like what I've just said there is a really simplified way of looking at structuring a rehearsal. But it's really achievable. actually. It's really achievable to do something like that. And so lately I've been sort of like looking at all of my rehearsals, right from my beginner band classes all the way through to my community music rehearsals, and trying to structure rehearsals in that way. And I think it is having real impact. And so I wanted to share that as one of my little nuggets today, because it's on my mind.
Oh,
And and it's quite simple, it's quite easy to execute, actually.
I can see parallels in lots of things there, like uh, even like a classroom music lesson over an oversimplified structure, because obviously you've got your periods of focus and relaxation and blah, blah, blah. But you need that good start. And you also want to send them off with something positive, because that's the way memory works, is that the kids will remember. That's the other thing. The kids will have an impression in their memory of the beginning or the end. That's what you remember the most out of an experience you have. So it's quite good to make the beginning. So
Yeah,
from a
and I don't.
memory point of view, that's good too.
Yeah, I had not thought of it like that, Debbie. You're quite right. I don't know why this has been on my mind lately. It's probably because I watch a lot of movies. I've been watching a lot of films. And people who know me know that, like, I just consume films in probably quite an unhealthy way.
We've
And I
all
mean,
got our
come on.
vices, David. We've
Come
all
on,
got
I'm allowed some me time. But also I think watching films, and I've been thinking about beginnings and middles and endings, and I think so it's really on my mind at the moment. And I think that was something I really wanted to share,
That
actually.
is so interesting, because I consume a lot of podcasts about business and online business, because well, Crescendo Music Education. And the funny thing is, what you're saying is resonated in what I'm hearing about content generation for online platforms,
Oh, how
content and
interesting.
advertising. So they start the beginning, they call it the hook, right? So
Yes.
you've got to
Yes.
start with the hook. So that sort of structure is actually what's espoused to do for good online business practice. And there's actually a whole lot, someone that I follow quite a few people in the online business world. So talk about going off on a tangent here, but I must put you would find it quite interesting. It's Donald Miller, who's big in online business space. He's got Story Brand. He talks about the whole lot of the way you focus your online business presence is like a story. And
Well,
it's,
I mean, if we talk about tech savvy young people, I mean, this is the best way for us to be
mm,
relevant as educators, right? Is to sort of like tap into something and structures that they might be subliminally aware of, um, and actually delivering content in a way that is relevant, or even though they might not see the workings of that, they might not see the strings on our little puppets, but delivering lessons that seem to have the same structure as other things that they're engaging in probably isn't a bad thing for us as educators, right?
yes, I love that tech savvy thing, but let's go back another step. I think it's actually in our DNA to want narrative and story. That is
Oh
the
yeah,
way education has happened since
forever. Mhm.
forever, since forever,
Yes,
before we could read
yes,
and write, before we
yes.
could, that's narrative is, that's why narrative is one of the pedagogies for essential pedagogies for early childhood. You just, narrative is telling that story is essential. It's the way that good education works. So,
Totally. I
um,
mean, flash forward to the end of our learning journeys when we do a performance. I mean, that's the thing we want to convey to the audience as a priority, isn't it? That we want to share some narrative, and that we're delivering a story in our musical way for the
yes,
audience. So it
and
starts there and it kind of ends there, doesn't it?
yes, and I bet when you were traveling around the country adjudicating uh, young bands, I bet the bands that you loved the best were not even necessarily the ones that all played the exact notes in the exact rhythm, though
Oh,
that's great if they could do that too. But I bet you needed that story to be told as an
the the
adjudicator.
the absolute best groups that I saw around Queensland over the last couple of months are the bands and orchestras who were able to tell a story and who were able to make me feel something as a listener. It has a little bit to do with notes and rhythms, but so much more to do with character and color and storytelling. And sign me up for a musical experience that hits those buttons anytime. That's what we're aiming for as music educators, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That sort of much deeper connection with the material, where it's so much a part of the point of making the music that it comes out, and that the audience can't help but be swept along with it as well. And when I say audience, I don't just mean people sitting in the seats watching. I also mean all the other people in the ensemble. I mean, playing for and singing for each other is so great. That's the best part of it.
All for yourself. And I'm thinking
All for yourself, yes.
I'm thinking of my preps, because I'll bring it back to that. When we're singing By Low Baby-O on 2 notes, you can sing By Low Baby-O. Most of them can sing it fairly much in tune. Most, good. But if we're singing it like a lullaby, it's a completely different experience. It's a 2-note song. I'm sure there's a whole lot of people who go, oh, who's singing those naff things? No, I need it for my sequence, for teaching. I need them for their tuning, for their starting to teach Tara and TT, so and me. So I need it pedagogically, but it can be beautiful. We're making music, and I think we can't lose sight of that.
I absolutely agree. Making music it should be the focus. It's the priority, is getting to the part where we get to make music, and that should underline everything we're doing in rehearsals and lessons.
And clapping whenever we're clapping rhythms off the board. If I don't have time to hand out instruments or whatever, let's just clap through these rhythms, or let's whatever. I will stop them and go, oh, we're making music. Stop clapping like that. And we will then clap more beautifully, because there's clapping and there's clapping, isn't there? So I just think if everything you do is about making music, the whole experience is going to be better.
Yes, I agree totally. I have nothing to add. I agree with you completely, Debbie. This is why you're a master, hey? Look at you unpacking it and then repeating it back. What a legend.
Okay, come on. Back to nuggets. All right. Any other little things? You've shared so much already. I
wish I'd been more. I wish I'd been more articulate. I feel like we've sort of like bounced around everywhere, but at least it's more like a conversation, I suppose. Is that okay?
That's what it is, and it actually suits me. I don't know if I officially do have ADHD, but I'm starting to feel like I do. So this works really well for me. Hopefully,
at least we're keeping all the listeners on their toes with us trying to.
I hope so. I hope so.
I guess another little nugget I might like to share is this little invention that I made called the pi cycle, right? And this is particularly helpful for students who might be drifting away from the program. So if I'm probably speaking a little bit more about instrumental music than classroom music at the moment.
Sorry, did you say pi as in PIE?
No, P-I-E. Oh yeah, pi as in a pi cycle. Go with me, Debbie.
Okay.
P, which stands for practice, I, which stands for improvement, and E, which stands for enjoyment, right? So my theory is that if we practice and we will improve, and if we're improving, then we'll enjoy it a little bit more, and if we're enjoying it more, we'll practice, and then the cycle repeats. So if we have a student who might be just needing a bit of a refocus, or if there's a student who might maybe be sort of like drifting away a little bit from music or from band, let's say band, then you just need to find one of those points, because that circle you can enter at any point. So you can find, like, let's say enjoyment, and then encourage that student to enjoy it just a little bit more, or find ways to get that student enjoying it a little more, and then they might just practice a tiny bit, and then they might just improve a tiny bit, and then they're back in. Does that make sense? So it's like an orbit, basically, like the moon around the Earth. You might be able to sit down with a student and get them to do some practice. I had a bassoon student recently who was like really not that into bassoon and was only playing bassoon because I'd asked them to. They weren't really taking their instrument home and whatever. So I said, teach me how to play the bassoon. So we had lessons together where this student thought they were teaching me. Really, I was just facilitating some practice time. And because he could see that he was improving a little bit, he actually started enjoying it more, came and we had our lessons like, just for 20 minutes a week together. And then he got back into the cycle, and then he was enjoying band a lot more because he could play more of the notes. And it just started with that one little moment, but we entered that on what he thought was a P for practice. No, hang on. I saw it as the P, but he saw it as the I for me, helping me improve. So I wanted to just talk about that little cycle, because that's a really good little way to talk to students, particularly high school students, about what happens when we practice and when we improve and when we enjoy. Another way that I describe that is really when we talk about video games, which is something that a lot of boys in particular are really into. And I know there's girls too. I shouldn't be so gender specific about it. But, I say to students, oh, look, what's a video game that you like? And they'll tell me. And I say, well, why do you like that so much? And they're like, oh, because I'm good at it. I'm like, oh, so because you're good at it, you do it more, and then you improve, and then you get better at it. And, the cycle sort of, well, learning music is the same. You've just got to get into one of those bits, and then they stay there and they keep orbiting, So I think I wanted to share that as sort of a bit of a weird little nugget as well.
Oh, that is not weird. That is gold. That is gold, because that we all know that. We understand that when we see those kids disengaging. And if we take band or string ensemble as an example, they're disengaging. I don't like it anymore. Are you playing at home? No. So that they're getting disengaged because they're not practicing. So they're not enjoying it. They're not improving. They're not.
That's right. But leaning into that P in the cycle might not be the way to go for that student. You might need to go to the I and be like, let me show you how we're improving. Let's do one thing where you can see that you're improving. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I am improving a little bit. So they might enjoy that a tiny bit more. Or it might be a student who just doesn't take their instrument home, but really enjoys coming to rehearsals. And then you can use that as sort of like the way to get them to practice a tiny bit. I know you love band. I would really love you to be able to demonstrate this little bit of this piece for the other people in your section next week. So do you think maybe you could just practice that one little bit for me so that you can help in the band room? And then inevitably they'll practice, they'll improve, they'll come back to band, and they'll be feeling a bit more confident. So they might stay in the cycle that way. So you can enter it at any point, and I think I really wanted to share that because that's a little nugget that I've been using for quite a long time, and it works really well. It works really well.
I love it.
It doesn't work all the time. Like, not everything works, but it's a good little nugget.
I love it. I can see the graphic now, the pie.
Yeah, if you notice, the whole time I've been talking, I've been doing this swirly.
Yeah.
It's got arrows,
Yes.
And it's so easy. It's so simple. Everything. Trying to keep it as simple as possible, because we don't have time. I don't know about you, but I'm so time poor. So these little things that don't take a lot of time are real magic makers, I think. And I think that's probably what I wanted to talk about in terms of nuggets. So I hope that's helpful, Debbie.
It's amazing. I can think of so many stories, just even from my experience as an instrumental coordinator who tries to support my teachers. I can think of so many stories that fit your pie. Exactly.
Okay, well, I'm so glad I talked about it. Oh, Debbie, I could just keep talking about all of these kinds of things forever. I mean,
I know. Well, can we just say right now, even though we're wrapping up now, let's book in another one. Let's do another podcast. Yeah.
I'd love to. I love talking. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking about music making and rehearsals. I love rehearsals. And I love talking about collaborating because it's really an untapped resource. There are so many people that you can collaborate with and you never run out. That's the great magic of collaborating, is there's always someone new to collaborate with. And I could just talk about this forever.
And the power in collaboration, I'm hoping, will be felt quite strongly across Queensland and Australia as music education is improved and focus is brought on it because of collaboration of people on the ground as we fight for music education. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we shouldn't give up either. I think it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm finished advocating. Like, I can't do any more advocating. But, if you just say what you really believe, and if you stick up for your own values, you don't have to keep fighting all the time, because you just keep looking after yourself. You keep saying what you think is important, and that won't wear you down. If it's really important to you, it won't wear you down. But I think when we're talking about advocacy, I just want to tell everybody not to give up. Just say what you think. Don't be frightened to be honest. And stick to your guns. Like if it's something that's really important to you, you share it. That's what people do in life. They stick up for the things that they think are important. And if we really think that music education is important, then we need to say so. And it's okay. We don't need to feel bad about saying that it's important. So I think I just want to encourage people not to give up with the advocacy. And to also use when we're talking about advocacy too, I think we also need to do a little bit of self-reflection as well. So like, if something's not really working at our school, or if you're in a place where you're sort of having trouble getting that music education message across, I think you do need to sort of step back, have a little bit of a look at your own practice, and think about, can I do something a little bit differently? Like, can I tweak this? Can I change the color of that a little bit to sort of get the message across? But still, I think my message about advocacy is don't give up.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned the self-reflection too, because so if you found yourself in a position with, say, an administration who was, against what you do and, trying to squeeze out music, I'll just generalize for now. You absolutely have to do what you're saying. Don't give up, stand up for what you're doing. But if it's not working, a little bit of self-reflection. Okay, how can I do this differently? Have I been coming in a bit heavy-handed? Can I
if
help?
It's not working,
if it's not working, try something different.
There must be a reason for it not working, and so I think as the teachers, that starts with us. So like if it's not working, you've got to really just take a moment to have a look at how you're delivering it. It might be how you're delivering a class or how you're delivering a rehearsal, but it also might be about how you're delivering the content when in conversation with other people as well. Like you said, like being a little touch heavy-handed, or maybe not heavy-handed enough. There's lots of different things, but actually just taking a moment to think about yourself and how you fit into the puzzle of advocacy, I think is really important. And we've talked so much about collaborating, haven't we, Debbie, today? But reaching out to other people for advice, reaching out to other people to say, like, this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm doing, is there room for me to grow? Sometimes it's just about just moving around the color palette just a tiny little bit. So, changing your dark green to a light green doesn't mean you have to go from green to red. You can just go a little bit, and those little tiny changes can sometimes make a really big difference when we're talking with people who are not musicians about music. So it doesn't have to be big shifts, but sometimes just little tiny shifts, they make a really big difference.
Oh, I love that color palette analogy. That is
It's
so
true
good.
though, isn't it? Yeah, it's true. Because sometimes it's just a tiny little shift that you need to make. It's not you don't need to repaint the whole room, So I think just being mindful that if you're feeling like your message isn't getting across, it might just be a little thing. It might just be one little thing, but talk to people, like share, like call up your mentors. Like I call my mentors all the time, and talk about these things, because it's just great having people on your side who have great ideas about how to
Email
deliver
me
messages.
anytime.
Yes, or me. Yeah. It's great. And it's fun to chat. It's fun to chat, isn't it?
Yep, it sure is. And you know what? You know how we're talking self-reflection. Something else that has occurred to me is it's actually your only option. You cannot control what somebody else is thinking or feeling. So what's the use of dwelling on, they're so against me, they're so nasty, what can I'm going to change them. Actually, you can't control their perspective. All you can do is control your actions and your perspective to hopefully make shifts in their perspective, but you can't control them. You can only control yourself. So
yes, and the other thing that we can control and that we need to focus on too is ensuring that what we're delivering for the students is, no matter what's going on outside of the classroom or the band or orchestra room, no matter what's happening, that that the quality of instruction that the students are receiving is always always the priority. So, staying focused on student learning and what you're delivering for them. I mean, that's why we're in education, right?
Mhm.
So making sure that what we're delivering for our young people is the absolute best that it can be. And that's really important too.
My heavens, we so agree. I love everything you've said. All right.
Thanks, Debbie.
Oh, I'm so glad, David. I'm so glad you agreed to come.
This is
chat
such a
to me.
fun chat. I just could talk about this forever.
No, and so could I. Yes. All right. All right. So we're going to definitely do some more podcasts. The way I'm recording ahead of time, so they might be for the 2025 season, but we're definitely going to talk together again, definitely. But before we say goodbye and thank you so much, I would like to give you the opportunity to get on your soapbox, because I think there's a few really important things that we've talked about today. But I want to give you a chance to get on your soapbox and say one important thing to all our listeners. And I know that they've got a lot of value out of listening to you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm so flattered and humbled to be part of this, Debbie. You've got no idea. I'm a long time listener, first time caller. It's just a fabulous resource, and listening to people talk about their craft,
Mm.
I mean, it's like you said, it's mostly classroom, but I mean, as an instrumental person, every single episode has been fantastic, and there's like nuggets and reflective practice, and where do I start? There's so much to talk about. Okay, well, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a quick second. I think there are two things I want to say. The first thing, and we haven't talked about this at all today, is repertoire and how important repertoire is. Repertoire is our curriculum as band and orchestra people, and everything we do has to be focused around repertoire. The amount of time that you spend looking for great pieces to play, and to share with students is never a waste of time. Creating a diverse and interesting program for young people to explore, and for you to use as a teaching tool is the absolute best and most important thing that happens as a conductor, as someone who's delivering an instrumental lesson or a rehearsal. So I just wanted to just touch on that super quickly. Maybe we can talk about that more next time.
Yes.
But
I've
I'm just
just
gonna I'm
actually
just
written
gonna
that down. Next
Oh, have you?
recording, repertoire. Yep.
So I'm just gonna put that there on the soapbox for the moment, because I just want to talk about that constantly, because I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, but I also think that's where a lot of people go right. And so I think spending time finding the right music for your students is crucial. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing, and this is something that we've already talked about, but I just wanted to say it one more time, Debbie, is that music is for everyone. That we want to make our lessons, our rehearsals, our even our one-on-one lessons, that it should be for everybody. And I would just encourage all music educators across Queensland, across the whole country, to just fling the doors and the windows open and let everybody in and see what happens, because we've done that and it has been the most joyful, most rewarding experience, letting everybody learn. Because music is for everyone. Like you said, everyone is a musician. It's in there just waiting to come out. Let everybody have a go, be welcoming. If students leave the program, you never know if they want to come back, and they often do. We see students who maybe don't experience success as string players or band players in the early years, and then year 10 comes around and they want to be in the choir because they didn't have a negative experience and when they were younger. So making it welcoming, making it good, but for everyone, that's the secret, I think. So that's me on my soapbox. Music is for everyone.
I love it. Stop right there. Everybody, I know they're all listening. They're driving in their car going, yes, yes, hallelujah, yes. Or they're on the treadmill calling out, amen, whatever. We all agree with you. That is amazing. Thank you so much for your time, David, and we will talk again.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
As we know, laughter relieves stress. Don't lose sight of the funny side of life. I went to the beekeeper the other day to get 12 bees. I counted them up and found he gave me 13. I said, "Sir, you gave me one extra." He said, "That's a freebie." It's terrible. Thank you so much for watching our Crescendo Music Education Podcast. For more information about all things Crescendo, including membership and music education resources, visit us at crescendo.com.au. Don't forget to like and subscribe.